Every time it feels like the conversation around the Baltimore Ravens offensive line might finally settle down, it winds up exploding all over again. It has turned into one of the most persistent storylines of the entire season, almost like an extra character lurking inside the building. And this week, John Harbaugh poured even more fuel on the discussion by leaving the door open for a real shift in how the team handles that group when a head coach starts hinting at changes up front. You know the tension is real because this offense has been searching for rhythm for weeks. And nothing starts to click until that wall of 5 plays in true harmony. The timing of all this only makes the situation heavier. 4 of the next 6 opponents are division rivals. Season-defining matchups that don't forgive repeated mistakes. The team is still winning, sure. But the way those wins are happening does not exactly inspire confidence. Especially after several games where the defense carried almost the entire load, while the offense struggled to find any sort of flow. Lamar Jackson has felt that pressure directly, and it is obvious he has not been as comfortable as usual. His numbers have dipped. His movement is different. And so much of that starts right in the middle of the offensive line. That is why Harbaugh's comments hit harder than usual. He was asked about Emory Jones, who was activated for the first time, but did not get into the game. His answer came out open-ended, almost mysterious, as if he were leaving room for something to happen at any moment. He said Jones was ready to play if needed, and that the team would see where it goes, on its own. That line might seem innocent, but in this context it flashes like a warning light. Moments later, he was asked whether a rotation on the offensive line could become a real possibility, and Harbaugh made it clear that everything is on the table, reminding everyone that the Ravens were doing that long before it became common around the league. Rotating linemen is not a popular idea among fans, or even among players. A lot of people believe chemistry depends on repetition, rhythm, and a steady run of snaps together. The problem is that rhythm has not existed, and when performance drops this much, every alternative becomes a reasonable option. Harbaugh has shown more than once that he is not afraid to try unconventional solutions when things tighten up. So the possibility of change is absolutely real. That does not mean it happens this week, especially with a short turnaround. But nobody would be shocked if the team experiments during the mini-bye. What stands out even more is how all of this exposes another uncomfortable truth. Ben Cleveland clearly was not a serious option for the coaching staff. Seeing a rookie who has never played a snap pass him on the depth chart speaks volumes about how the team views the veteran now. During warm-ups, Jones even lined up at left guard, a strong hint that if a change comes, it might be targeted exactly where the team has struggled most, especially with Andrew Voorhees still trying to find consistency. There is no denying that the interior of the line has been one of the biggest weaknesses of the offense, and even a small boost there could completely change the run game and give Lamar some breathing room. And the strangest part of it all is that the Ravens had the perfect chance to put Jones on the field already, especially late in that win over New York when the game was firmly under control. That would have been an ideal moment to give the rookie a few snaps without pressure, but they still held back. That hesitation tells you the team is split internally between experimenting with something new and being afraid to shake up a group that, even with its issues, is part of a roster that keeps finding ways to win. This same internal tug-of-war showed up in past seasons when the team rotated linemen during periods when Ronnie Stanley was easing back from injury and Morgan Moses was banged up. Baltimore has used that approach before. Even if the results were mixed, recent grading on the offensive line only confirms what fans have been feeling for weeks. Ronnie Stanley's pass protection grade was solid, but the inconsistency remains. Tyler Linderbaum continues to hold his ground, while others fluctuate wildly from game to game. Voorhees had one of his roughest outings on Sunday, which only strengthens the idea that if a rotation happens, left guard is the likeliest spot, and when it comes to run blocking, the problems are even more obvious. The line has lost its push, loses to many straight-up battles, and fails to open lanes that would bring balance back to the offense. The ripple effect of that is simple. Lamar ends up absorbing more hits, improvising more than he should, and it is starting to show on his body. Because now it is not just about missed assignments, it is about injuries stacking up. And not one injury, but a concerning sequence: hamstring, knee, ankle, and now a toe issue. It feels like a new concern appears every week, and there is no way to pretend this is not affecting his play. You can see it in the way he gets up after contact, in the less explosive cuts, in how quickly he chooses to get rid of the ball to avoid getting hit. And when a quarterback loses trust in his own legs, the entire structure of the offense suffers. That is a huge reason why the read option essentially vanished last game. If Lamar does not feel comfortable running, opposing defenses can relax, because one of the biggest threats simply disappears. Without that threat, the offense becomes stiff, predictable, and easier to defend, and until that element returns, the offensive line's responsibility becomes even greater, because the plan B becomes incredibly limited. It is like every problem is amplifying the next. The line struggles, which puts pressure on Lamar. Lamar becomes physically limited, which puts pressure on the scheme, and suddenly the whole unit operates in a gray zone that does not match the talent on the roster. Even so, the Ravens keep grinding out wins, creating a strange mix of optimism wrapped in warning signs. And while the debate over the offensive line dominates almost every conversation in Baltimore, there is another angle to this whole situation that is starting to gain strength inside the locker room: confidence. Because when an entire group spends weeks hearing that it is performing below expectations, even the players who are doing their jobs well end up getting dragged into that storm. It is as if every snap becomes a silent test of whether they can still hold the offense together. And when that emotional pressure mixes with the physical adjustments the position demands, you get a combination that affects even the most experienced veterans. That is why, in every interview, you can sense John Harbaugh choosing his words in a way that protects his players while still leaving the door cracked open for changes. As if he knows that a tough warning can turn into motivation when delivered at the right moment. In the middle of all of this, Lamar Jackson becomes the gravitational center of the entire debate. There is no Ravens offense without him being the most impactful piece on the field. And when he is not at full strength, the whole team feels it, and it is not just about his mobility or his explosive throws. It is about the way he dictates the rhythm, about the way he turns a broken play into a new chance at positive yards, something Baltimore has always used as a psychological weapon against opposing defenses. When he is not doing that, it is not only the offense that loses efficiency, it is the very identity of the team that goes into limbo. And that identity has been tested week after week because of the constant pressure Lamar has been dealing with. It is impossible to ignore that in the most recent games he seems to be carrying a buildup of fatigue. Not only physical but mental as well. He still makes brilliant plays. He still finds improbable passes. He still invents solutions where nothing should exist. But all of that is happening less often, and with much more strain, and that has never been his style. Lamar has always been fluidity, improvisation, emotional control, and natural game sense. Seeing him hesitate more, run less, and get up slowly after tackles would already be enough to raise concern. Even if the offensive line were playing at its best, but with the line unstable, every small issue seems amplified, and this is where the discussion about changes starts taking on a more urgent tone. The coaching staff knows that Lamar's health is the thermometer of the entire season, and if he continues being pressured the way he has been, this trend can escalate into something more serious. That is why the idea of inserting Emory Jones or any other player who can stabilize the interior of the line is not just a tactical option. It is almost a preventative measure to protect the one gear that absolutely cannot break. The team keeps winning. But there is a quiet fear that this will not last if Lamar continues taking unnecessary hits. At the same time, the offense is trying to rediscover its balance with a ground game that has lost part of its efficiency. From the start of the season, Baltimore tried to implement a more structured, more traditional approach. Something different from the style entirely dependent on Lamar's creativity. It was a legitimate attempt to modernize the way the offense sustains itself in big games. But that plan only works if the offensive line wins its physical battles, and that simply has not been happening consistently. When defenders are crossing the backfield before the running back even touches the ball, any game plan, no matter how well designed, collapses instantly. The lack of explosiveness in the running game has been especially frustrating because that element has always been the emotional backbone of the Ravens' offense. It is not just about gaining yards, it is about wearing down the defense, imposing physicality, controlling the clock, dictating the rhythm of the game. When that disappears, opposing defenses start attacking Baltimore much more aggressively, crowding the middle, tightening coverage, taking away Lamar's quick options, and forcing the team to rely on longer and riskier throws. That leaves the quarterback more exposed and increases the physical toll on every snap. And even with all of that, there is still a feeling that the offense is very close to clicking into place. The pieces are there, the system has potential, the coaching staff knows what it wants. But it is as if one gear is misaligned and stalling the entire machine. The offensive line is that gear, and until it rotates smoothly again, the whole system continues performing, only halfway to its potential. What makes everything even more intriguing is how dominant the defense has been, because that efficiency on the other side of the ball ends up masking some of the offense's problems, strengthening a dangerous narrative that winning fixes everything. But inside the building, nobody believes that. The team knows that the details ignored in October become fatal in January. And that is another important point in Harbaugh's recent comments. He is not just thinking about the next game. He is thinking about direct matchups against opponents who know every weakness of this roster. He is thinking about the physical battles that determine playoff seeding, about the games where Lamar will not have room to improvise, and protection needs to be perfect from the first quarter through the fourth. That is why those calm interviews carry so much weight. He would not bring up the possibility of changes unless he felt the offense had reached a point where stability can no longer be maintained. Just by insisting on the same formula, the reaction from the fanbase has also become part of the storyline. Ravens fans are used to disciplined teams, solid offensive lines, and a ground game that controls the pace and makes the clock their ally. Seeing this instability creates a type of anxiety that is hard to hide, especially because the offense has already gone through years of growing pains, the arrival of new coordinators, changes in the playbook, shifts in philosophy. All of that fed the expectation that this season would be the most complete version of the Lamar Jackson era, and it still could be. But for that to happen, the offense needs to move in the same direction as the defense. And that is only going to happen once the line reclaims the silent leadership it has always held. Inside the locker room, the atmosphere is a mix of pressure and opportunity. Younger players like Emory Jones can feel that a real chance is approaching, especially because the position group has shown vulnerability. Veterans know that any drop in performance could open the door for someone else to step in. It is a competitive environment, and that might be exactly the emotional spark this team needs. In some cases, the threat of change alone is enough to bring out the best in a player, but if that does not happen soon, Harbaugh will not hesitate to act. The psychological impact of a potential rotation can be huge as well. Changes on the offensive line directly affect communication, blocking reads, the way the running back sees his lanes, and the way Lamar feels the pocket forming around him. It is the kind of adjustment that can transform an entire game for better or worse. And that calculated risk is what makes the decision so delicate. Baltimore knows it cannot wait forever, but it also cannot make a rush change that causes more problems than it solves. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Baltimore is buzzing like never before. In an exclusive, off-the-record moment that somehow found its way to the streets, John Harbaugh, the long-standing architect of the Ravens, reportedly said what nobody else had dared to say, according to insiders. Harbaugh didn't mince words. He openly acknowledged that the team, often underestimated in public chatter, is genuinely talented. Sources close to the organization hint that his comments were more than just casual praise. They were a subtle warning to the rest of the league. For years, pundits and fans alike have debated whether the Ravens could reach the heights that their past glories promised. The team's core, a mix of seasoned veterans and emerging stars, has often flown under the radar, overshadowed by flashier franchises. But Harbaugh's rare admission suggests there's an underlying confidence in the locker room that outsiders may have ignored. This is a group that knows its worth, one anonymous source claims, echoing the sentiment reportedly expressed by the coach himself. What makes this revelation even more tantalizing is the timing. The Ravens have quietly assembled a roster that some insiders call one of the most balanced and unpredictable in recent memory. While skeptics focus on individual matchups or isolated statistics, Harbaugh appears to see the bigger picture, a synergy and depth that could make the team a formidable contender. Rumors are now swirling about strategic moves, secretive practices, and potential breakout performances that could catch the entire league off guard. Meanwhile, social media has exploded. Fans are dissecting every word, every nuance of Harbaugh's statement, while sports analysts speculate whether this is a psychological tactic aimed at opponents. Could it be a calculated ploy to unsettle rival teams? Or is it simply a rare glimpse into the coach's candid assessment of his squad? Whatever the case, Baltimore's football scene is alive with intrigue, conversations in bars, sports radio shows, and online forums are dominated by one question: are the Ravens finally ready to prove their critics wrong? That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.